This is what I'm doing. Yep. Bumblebee is so pretty. Of course the sun would come out. Do you guys want to see the clouds? Let me show you the clouds really quickly, and then I'm gonna pray. I've got 7 more minutes of these on my underneath my eyes. Okay. Look how pretty it is. There we go. All right. Let me pray. God, I thank you so much for your love. I thank you for all the things you have done, will do, and are doing. Help us to hear what it is that you are speaking to each of us. Thank you for these moments. Thank you for your mercies that are new every day. Help me, God, to communicate well, Father. Not only what I am feeling, but if there's something that you were telling me, God. Holy Spirit, come. Amen. Okay, so a couple things. We were outside because my son, I caught on as I've told you, I've taken a lot of information, but I caught on that he was listening. That's something that I don't want. That is a big thing for me. I'm not, obviously, he can learn about life's difficulties. I'm not saying he should be guarded from everything. But there's just certain things that he should not know. Because he's a child. And there are things that I wish he hadn't already have experienced. Anywho, so that's that. So I will do this outside because I don't want him listening and paying attention. He can be a kid. The other thing was that I know I had, and I'm not apologizing, I just want to kind of explain it a little bit. I know that I had an emotional reaction. I am an empath. Okay, I've talked about this more than once. And watching meanness, reading meanness, cruelty, that is hard for me. Okay, so there's that. And there were certain things that rhymed, not exact, not a cookie cutter, that rhymed with things I have experienced in my life. This looks so funny, me talking all serious with this. And so I first, I guess, want to say that we all, I believe God is the only one that can bring enlightenment, can bring healing, and can bring understanding of what love is and what love is not. If we have not been enlightened or given that understanding, then we continually, right, cookie cut. Well, this is what I was taught, so I do it. And I've always been someone who, because of how God has made me, seen things bigger than that. I don't care if that's what I knew. I'm not going to do it. I don't care if that's what you knew. You're not going to get away with doing that to me, if that makes sense. And so also things are much better than they used to be. So I do want to say that. I was always welcomed. It's just, again, well, this is what I do because this is what was done to me, right? Here, I'll show you. Look, this is what we do. Doesn't make it right. So I had read a story about a similar situation, except for that was crazy when I was doing my reading. Anyway, it doesn't make it right. So moving on back to their story, we had left off at, got 2 more minutes with these on my eyeballs. You go in here so you don't fly away. Thank you. All right, where did I leave off, guys? I think I left off here. So we left off where She said, yet in her diary, another around this time, she continued to speak of how I long to be with Jim sometimes, how often my first thought upon waking, yet before waking sometimes, is of Jim. No wonder then she would worry the next day after seeing this letter, afraid I wrote a bit harshly to Jim. So we just left off with her, being open and honest. Back to their daughter writing. Yes, I'd say that's the way he took it. October 23rd. This is from Jim. It is easy to misinterpret letters when one does not read them in the mental set that possessed the author when they were written. I have so misinterpreted both of those I have gotten from you since I say misinterpret because since I saw you. I say misinterpret because I refuse to believe that you mean to sound as you carped and cavilled at me. And that is what I have sensed in these. You guys, it's hard. It's hard for me. Just the back and forth, please. My gosh. Okay. It's starting to get a little sunny. I might have to push that back even more. I might fast forward, you guys. To me, it's petty. Petty. Let me write really well to you and make you feel small. I'll write back. Just come on. Come on. Ugh. Let's get to the point. Okay. I was reading. I'm going to... I'll continue because this is their journal. This is how she wrote the book. Okay. Because I refuse to believe that you mean to sound as you carped and cavilled at me, and that is what I have sensed in these. I am satisfied that your feeling toward me is the same as it was when you wrote of tender intimacies last winter, though you changed your tone to fit the occasion. I should be surprised now to learn that you did not anxiously look for this letter days before it arrived, and I say this because my moods, I take it, interpret some of the things you may say as carelessness toward me. Your using regular mail rather than airmail has been so taken. Ugh. 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 Why am I irritated? Because we just left off where he could care less how he spoke to her, right? Again, sure enough, she had made special mention in her diary of sending these letters by regular ground service, even though she noted he writes airmail always, desired effect accomplished. 1 second, please. One second. Oy. Oy. All right, back to what I was doing. Statements like, if I have a love for you, it is not a very, desired effect accomplished. Wait, oh gosh, okay, get it together, Priscilla. Sure enough, she had made special mention in her diary of sending these letters by regular ground service, even though she noted he writes airmail always, desired effect accomplished. Sometimes, like, if I have a love for you, it is not a very thriving one, and your last are easily taken to mean nonchalance on your part. Your speaking of our erratic and impassionate correspondence makes me feel as though you are not taking me as seriously as I should like you to. In short, Bets, I am persuaded that you love me, and if my saying so angers you, since you have never actually said it, well, then you had better condition yourself to my assumptions and get used to feeling as though I had you where I want you. After rereading what he'd just written, he tried again, a little softer this time. What I wanted to say is that I didn't feel your last letter was long enough, gracious enough, loving enough, and some other enough to satisfy what I have understood to be love for me and you. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is hard. I can't. I don't think I can do this. This is a little bit, where's the personal responsibility? None. No responsibility. I'm going to fast forward this. I don't want to do it. Sorry. If you guys would like to read this, you can. We are on page. What page is this? Where did I leave off at? This is page 84, 85, and 86, and 87. But apparently at some point they joke joyously. Ugh. I'm going to skip past all the pettiness. I can't do it. It makes me uncomfortable. Uh, I don't like it. Okay. As a matter of fact, so fast forward all his writing. Fine, this section. I'm going back to exactly. I literally throw a fit to just go back because it doesn't make sense if I don't finish it. Then your added suggestion that I might not be really, then your added suggestion that I might not really be considering your welfare might, but some notion of mine about easing you off in this re-questioning of our correspondence was unsettling, and the flat statement that you suspected in me other unexpressed reasons for it was, and is, not a little aggravating. As a matter of fact, I think now that I wrote not for your sake, nor for mine, but for Dave's. What worried me was that Dave seemed so sure of the dangers involved in our continued writing, that I feared he had interpreted you more wisely than I. He plagues my conscience with his words of ruining the girl. Next time he writes, I've a notion to send him your last. I'm glad at least to have your convictions in writing. May I ask a favor? Will you please write that brother of yours in the same vigorous tone in which you addressed me, and convince him that you are tougher than he thinks? Make him understand that this is not all my decisions, my liberty, my choices, my leading. They are the Lord's leading in respect to both of us, and we have both experienced that direction. It is neither of us leading the other on, but God leading us both on. I haven't been able to convince Dave of that. I'm sure a word from you would be effective. He also wondered if she'd be open to something else, that they should sit for and exchange new pictures of one another. You always complain about about your set of me, that I am such a little boy, your very words, or that you have plenty of the back of my head, thanks to Dave. What say we get some professional proofs and exchange them for lack of something better to do for Christmas? You send yours here, I'll reciprocate, and that way we can get our own choices. Before this, I've always regarded picture giving as some form of ego expression. In this case, I argue from the standpoint of necessity. Necessity. He needed her. The day this letter arrived in Morristown was one of those radiant October days, my mother said. The days leading up to it had been less so. No word from Jim yet, she written on Tuesday. I almost hold my breath to see what he will say of my last letter. Oh, the uncertainty, the wanting, the wondering. It is hard, but it is God's way. The following day, Wednesday, still no word. Mrs. Elliot wrote a note simply telling all about the family, conspicuous absence of the love and cordiality she expressed before she met me. Then came Thursday, and a wonderful letter. October 27th. Jim is incorrigible, bless his heart, and inimitable. Never have I been treated like this before, especially by a man. What worries me is that I seem to thrive on it. But I must wait a little while. Oh, discipline, thou art a jewel, but cumbersome. She wrote the same sentiments to him in her letter the next day, a note much more lighthearted than her previous one, full of happy, smiling personality. October 28th. Jim Elliot, you are incorrigible. That's all I can say. No man has ever treated me like this before, and I don't expect another one to. I'm persuaded that you know a lot of things about me that I don't even know yet, and seem to have access to a barometer of my feelings that I've never had a glimpse at. Well, carry on, brother. It's fascinating. And as for this picture swap idea, I had already thought of having mine made for mother, but didn't want to commit myself by letting you know, because they might turn out to look just like me, and then, of course, I wouldn't have sent you one. But I suppose that they can't be worse than the ones you have. I would like to have one of you, though, past the age of 18, for you are now 22. I didn't forget your birthday. It is getting late, my hand is tired, so whether this letter is long enough, etc. or not, I must say good night. At least it was written soon enough, which is more than can be said for some folks' letters. So good night, Jim, though for you it's just 9:30 now. Joyously, Betty. How delightful to read her jokes. I can almost hear her laughter even as I'm writing. But quite serious things were happening at this time as well, in terms of their thirst for following God to the foreign fields. Their friend, Van, whom I've mentioned before, had recently stopped at my mother's before leaving from New York on her way to Africa. What a heart-gladdening thing to see her. How she refreshes my soul. My, how I wish I were ready to go with her. In the days after Van left, my mother thought of her friend out on the ocean, such a new venture, and here I sit, not knowing whither or why. Or as she prayed while composing her diary entry of a week or so earlier, "You won't let me miss the sound of going in the tops of the mulberry trees, will you, Lord?" A reference to God's call to battle for David against the Philistines in 1 Chronicles 14:15. Even in the most recent upbeat letter to my dad, she had said, "I have been conscious of inward fretting over my apparent inactivity. It gives me a dig every time someone asks, 'What are you doing now?' It is not what I am doing that is nothing, but it is what God is doing, and even for that I cannot point to specific things, like Exhibit A, for questioners to gaze at in proof. I know He is working and has purposes for which I know nothing, but it takes faith, and I found that this means active, operative, continued faith and faithfulness." My father knew exactly what she was feeling and talking about. Your comments on the present waiting period were no less applicable to you than me. The Guyana project is slow, he said, mentioning that nothing would be coming of it until first of the year at the earliest. Like her, he realized that God was primarily calling him to be faithful in the now and the waiting. November 1st. Today I went out to the Christian high school to place my application as a substitute teacher. Tonight I went to the local detention home for boys to tell a Poe story at their Halloween party. Tomorrow, even, I am to help a newly beginning craft class for unsafe kids at one of the suburban assemblies. Wednesday afternoon, children's meeting at the hall. Friday morning, chapel service for the Goodwill Industry employees. Days I spend in the books. But according to my dad's journal, God was also beginning to reveal clearer information concerning future tense answers as well. On October 29th, he mentioned reading a letter that my Uncle Bert received 6 weeks earlier in Peru. As people tended to do with letters in those days, Bert had apparently forwarded it home. My parents' correspondence often included with their own letters a handful of additional cards and notes they'd received from someone else and wanted to share. This particular letter was from a Wilfred Tidmarsh, written from the jungles of East Ecuador, speaking of a need for reaching the natives in that area of the world with the gospel. This again, my dad's private journal. October 29th. On the reading of Wilfred Tidmarsh's letter to Bert, written September 9th, I responded to a simple urge within me to offer myself for the work there. It struck me as quite a presumptive action, and I covenanted with the Lord quietly that I would not post a letter unless I had some definite word from him. It seems the situation he is in demands that he abandon the Indian work among the Quichuas because of his wife's illness. He had asked the Christian and Missionary Alliance to take over, but they have given no verdict as yet. Remember, among the directives he believed he'd received from the Lord at the end of 1948, I feel quite at ease about saying that tribes work in South American jungles is the general direction of my missionary purpose. Was this new opening in Ecuador the door through which God would send him? Not having the luxury of hindsight, he didn't know yet. But in seeking answers to all the year's questions, only one thing would do. As my mother said, the only thing that keeps me stable and settled in these days of uncertainty, utter perplexity, is the absolute dependability of God's word. My father, of course, was on the same wavelength, challenging himself even as he challenged her. Let me warn you not to neglect consciously directed Bible studies these days. Directed Bible study these days. But what I loved from watching them navigate God's answers through His Word and through prayer was that they weren't merely seeking His personal instruction in regard to their ways. And though they desperately craved it, they were equally, if not more diligently, seeking to discover only His ways, which would ultimately give God the glory. I'm encouraged, for instance, reading my dad's journal entry of November 11th, after he obviously spent much of the day in reading and thinking ahead. I see clearly now that anything, whatever it be, if it be not on the principle of grace, it is not of God. Here shall be my plea in weakness. Here shall be my boldness in prayer. Here shall be my deliverance in temptation. At least, here shall be my translation. Not of grace, then not of God. And here, O Lord Most High, shall be your glory and the honor of your Son. The awakening for which I have asked, it shall come in thy time on this principle by grace, through faith. Perfect my faith, then, Lord, that I may learn to trust only in divine grace, that thy work of holiness might soon begin in Portland. I was all legalistic for at least 20 years of my adult life, believing if I could just be more disciplined, God would be more pleased with me, and I could climb that ladder of perfection, earning the reputation I desired. My own rules of godliness were my ideals. More than I loved him, I loved my roles of what a devoted wife and Christian home should be. Therefore, to borrow from my mother, to my, ugh, Therefore, to borrow from my father's words, I was not being delivered in temptation or being bold in prayer, or understanding that his grace covered all my pleas and weakness. Nor was I learning what my mother had told me throughout her life, how we shouldn't always be examining our own holiness, but simply seeking to please him. That is up to him to bring about change in us, yes. As he helps us do his will, he conforms us into Christ-likeness. It's all grace, it's not all about us. Amen. Knowing the ways of God helps us know the way to go. My parents knew this, and so while Dad was learning from the word the deeper meanings of grace, my mother was learning from it as well, the deeper meanings of love. Specifically, what God was saying to her in Scripture about the way she and my dad should see and handle their uncommon friendship. November 17th. In seeking the Lord many days and weeks for light and darkness, I believe he is beginning to give some explanation. Chambers says, love is spontaneous but must be maintained by discipline. November 18th. The Lord is wonderfully opening my eyes and showing me what I believe is the explanation of my confusions and perplexities regarding the course of our relationship. It changes, in anomalies, nature, and degree. This extensive few weeks of study, including deep analysis of the original Greek, resulted in an exceptionally long letter she wrote to my dad on November 29th. She began, and after many days, but these days have been occupied with study and thought which seemed to me necessary before I could answer yours of the 10th. I'll let her explain it at length. November 29th. I was not a little concerned over your words. Do you think I would dally with you if I shared any notion that you were staying with me? I thought this over, asking myself, am I toying with him? Has he any misconception of the nature of my feelings? Have I been fair? If I were to go on now, without clarifying some things which have become clear to me in the last 2 weeks, I should not be fair to you. You have been unfair to me. The question expressed in the above quotation from your last, along with numerous other broad allusions to the fact that I had never declared my love to you, were unfair. You have repeatedly wanted to test my feelings. Why? To what end? Anything but selfishness. In other words, your love is dependent upon requital. This you will admit, I feel sure. Yet I have been content to go on sharing plenty of notions that you were toying with me. I need not go into all the instances which have raised serious questions. Dave tells me he is sure you are not in love. All of which brings me to the principal conclusion of my meditations of late. Your feeling toward me and mine toward you have not been on the same basis. How to explain what I mean? Oh, Jim, this is another one of those times when I would give anything to talk instead of write. I fear that I may omit much that would convey to you my true intention. Her study had given clarity on the different kinds of love declared in Scripture. And while she realized that the Lord might one day cause theirs to be a love that would culminate in marriage, for now it was a friendship love. And rather than resist friendship love as insufficient or complicate it with claims and attachments, she believed that she would embrace it. After all, it would hardly be a waste. She'd be learning, since no love in any relation of life can be at its best if this element of friendship love be lacking. I do not wish to be unkind, last of all to you, but I cannot help but feel that you need to know more of this friendship, which consists in loving rather than in being loved. A friend, Aristotle, put it. Think back. You have spoken of the desire for possession, laying claims, etc. I was insistent that such should have no part in our relation so long as it was on this present basis. I am now more convinced than ever that a love which is pure and of divine origin can exist entirely without compact or condition. Yet, as you wrote once, you found joy in my letters when you wanted to be loved. HCT says in one of the books she'd been reading, Henry Clay Trimble's Friendship, the Master Passion, no love is more liable to misconception than a love that is without limit or claim or craving. It was the love known among the Christians of Acts 4:32, knowing no rights. It is the love of John 3:16, poured forth freely and without return to all the world, possessionless in a sense, until individuals become members of the family of God, when a new element enters. The Greek word in lines 8 and 12 is philia, friendship love. The word in line 13 is agape, unconditional love. Slowly but surely, she'd said, to return to application to our own friendship. You will recall telling me quite candidly that you did not know a constant, never turning, ever deepening flow of love. In fact, I think you said that you were not capable of such. This I refuse to believe. You are as capable of it as you are any virtue, by God's grace, by discipline, by drawing from Him the power. Whether or not you know or ever shall know such a love for me is not even a consideration at this point. My concern is that you recognize the nature and source of this love as divine. I believe the 15-week period of silence in the summer of 48 indicates that we have experienced something of true friendship as expressed above. I know I did, at any rate. From things you said, your feelings were pretty much the same at the end of that period as at the beginning, and in many other practicals, no, and in any other particulars. I think there has been a mutuality of this real friendship, but I also feel that other elements have entered in. I believe that you and I, Jim, if we are to continue, must know that this true friendship apart from everything else, for it is this alone which continues without consummation, for it is in itself, and by its very nature, a fulfillment. For a long time, it seems to me, we have gone along, you insisting on claims and evidences, I trying to maintain a relationship that is from feeble yearnings freed. True, there were all too many instances when I sought selfish ends. The love which is true friendship is selfless, divine. I am selfish, human. So I have fallen many times. But can you see any evidence of my goal, at least, in our past contacts? I understand so much better that which was obscure before, and by God's grace I trust He will make of me one who is true in love, no matter to whom that love be given, and pour through me His own vast and high and holy love. If we seek now to mix the two, we place ourselves in a paradoxical position. So, to reduce this example to the degree of our relationship, I feel perfectly free to write, or not write, as I wish. It will make no difference to me whether or not you agree to the conclusions I've outlined here. Oh, I love her. You may say that you violently disagree with all I have said, or that you do not wish to continue correspondence if I'm not willing to declare for you a love of the kind you want, or that you cannot continue on this basis. So far as I can see now, if I know anything of being a friend, none of these things move me. I am asking the Lord to teach me, and you, for our separate good primarily, regardless of His ends or purposes and our mutual affinities. It was quite a treatise she'd written, both scholarly and heartfelt, but to understand how my father reacted to it, perhaps the following insight will help. A few weeks earlier, when her previous letter had come, it didn't include a copy of one of my mother's poems he'd repeatedly requested. Instead, she repeatedly withheld it. The piece in question was a poem she had read to him while on one of their picnic excursions in Portland during the summer, written in March 1947. I love not with the evanescent flame of wind-touched candle, or with sporadic passions, fostered only of the moon. I love with steadfast quietness of heart, dynamic, strong, which plumbs at untold depth. I love with purest singleness of heart, one never-turning, ever-deepening flow of warmth and power, of fathomless devotion. Wow. After receiving apparently a smart-like reply from him, she had torn it up right then in his presence. But as reported in his letter of November 10th, after again no poem had appeared, he took matters into his own hands. After lunch, I headed out from Mount Tabor to the place where we discussed the letters that afternoon. I had difficulty recognizing the exact spot, as things are much more in a tangle since the falling of the leaves. This hindered considerably my search for those bits of paper into which you rendered the much disputed poem of March 22nd, 1947. I found a few pieces, some badly soaked, some only shreds, all crumbled and decomposed. You would have laughed to see me carefully inching over all the spot that with the dogged determination of a paleographer, and laughed unkindly too, did you not appreciate my purpose. Well, I have succeeded by only 75%, having pieced together parts of all the lines, but but completely satisfactorily only the first and last two. Does this sound like a man who only wanted to be friends? In the same letter is where he'd written the line she'd referenced. You insist that you are just Betty, no strings, no emotion, no feeling toward me, but kindly friendship. When Dave, Van, and Bunny all tell me, Betty really loves you. Do you think I would dally with you if I shared any notion that you were toying with me? I hope you think better of me than that. Maybe then, she should have expected the obtuse reaction she received even from such a well thought out letter. Very little comment on my epistle, she wrote in her diary a few weeks later, December 20th, when his letter arrived, except to call it pretty much exalted nonsense. He said he could he said he couldn't make heads or tails of it. December 17th. After 2 weeks of pondering your letter, I understand less of it than I did when I began. I still find myself reading 2 or 3 lines over and over, shaking my head, wondering. On Thursday, I sat down with 10 pages of notes to answer you, to refute and upset your new theory. After I had written 4 pages, I saw how impossible it was to answer, when I hardly understand what you were talking about. She'd realized, even while she'd been awaiting word, that the waiting itself was a test of her own theories of love. No word from Jim for a month, she'd written on December 10th. It's all right. God gives me love that asks no return, for him and for him. For him and for him. She'd been anticipating my dad's letter, with fear for the most part. I am prepared to receive a final goodbye, if that is how he takes it. When it came, she bravely spent a while with the Lord this afternoon and received peace. Yea, will not get leave to steal quietly into heaven in Christ's company without a conflict and a cross. Perhaps, though, the main reason my dad wasn't inclined to worry at present about such deep issues of the heart was because of his excitement over something else that had come up. He'd been communicating with Dr. Tidmarsh. Since writing you, I have had detailed correspondence with 2 missionaries who I wrote. One, Wilfred Tidmarsh of Ecuador, whose wife was badly injured in an MAF plane tragedy, MAF being Mission Aviation Fellowship, when Nate Saint was pilot, who is having to leave an established forest work among Quechua Indians because of his wife's illness. The other, Roland H.C. Hill of Bangalore, India. Both describe fields of tremendous interest to me, and both are quite anxious regarding my leading from the Lord. From one standpoint, the works are almost opposite, as the Ecuadorian work is among a primitive, unsettled tribe, while the India project is among high school and college-age upper-crust Hindus who are studying English. Brother Hill wants to start a Bible school of some sort and is looking for someone who would qualify as a teacher of Greek, etc. Since beginning this letter, I have had one from Ecuador asking definitely about my leading, since the work must be turned over to someone soon. I will be writing him this afternoon, but what shall I say? How is one to decide when the heart seems equally torn for both works and one's capabilities fit either sphere? To top this, Dave wrote me asking if I could take his job with FMF next year, suggesting that it would be excellent training for the field, but what better training than the field itself? Anne asked her thoughts on love and their love, on whether they had love. I think you will sense my predicament and forgive me if I sort of skip over the admittedly important but laborious study of your friendship ideals. Further, I don't see how we could possibly come to any settlement on such a matter in letters. We should have to talk over it personally, in a situation where it is possible to retort on the spot. If you read my letter to Dave, you know my sentiment about loving in faith, and that it is as far as I have come by experimental spiritual reasoning. The degrees and qualities of that loving are variable and poor, yet they are in faith, and it is there that must grow. I don't mean that you should cut out the subject from your letters, but only hope you will understand its absence in my own. Having read this, imagine my mother's emotions when on the Friday before Christmas a packet arrived by mail at the house. It was the picture of himself he'd made for her. December 23rd, I went upstairs and cried. Here's where we leave them at the end of 1949. In reading through the letters from this year, one can't help but detect a storminess to the relationship. My mother insisted on keeping it just friends because of the lack of assurance from my dad that they would ever marry. The uncertainty and heart-searching had to be painful, as they both did love each other, but my mother could not express it as romantic love, only as true friendship, a true Christ-honoring friendship, a meeting of mind and heart. My dad, however, couldn't quite accept this. He wanted to hear from her that she desired and admired him. He hoped she could go beyond the harmony of their minds toward something deeper, but intellectually he knew. This was only his flesh talking. It's why he often confessed in his journal on how his love for God could be divided, hungry for more of my mama's expressions toward him. He wrote to her once more before year's end, recalling with laughter the vacation spent with you all there in 1947, the skating party, sledding at McCutcheon's, the midnight fest. He also sends belated wishes for a happy birthday, December 27th. I forgot to mention your birthday, my lass, the 21st, if my memory serves. I can't remember if we ever discussed giving gifts or not, but somehow it seems such a cheap sort of a thing to do, entirely too conform as a practice to have much place in our relationship. The practice at Christmas has gotten to be such a commercialized hoax that I will be sincerely glad when all good Christians abandon it. He closed with a prayer asking for a 1950 for you that is both directed by the will of Christ and executed by his power. She followed with a letter written New Year's Eve, December 31st. Your letter was welcome, and I was glad you were pleased with the picture. To know that you accepted it without derogatory remarks is enough. As for yours, I like it very much. Do not think the tinting detracts at all. The family went wild over it, but it only made me wish I could see the frank smile in flesh and blood. Yes, we have been all through the gift business before, and I agree with your sentiments in the matter entirely. The first time was up on a grassy hill not far from the Warren Elgin tracks. You had thought perhaps I should be hurt if you gave me nothing for graduation. The thought had not even occurred to me. In fact, I am sure I should have been disappointed if you had given me anything. Occasions, why must we be bound by occasion? Perhaps we have been cradled in custom, but must we grow up in a showcase? Be yourself, James, as you've always been, I think. I sort of like you that way. And for 1950, remember this, she said, quoting the ancient hymn. The King of love my shepherd is, whose goodness falleth never. I nothing lack if I am his, and he is mine forever. You guys have to stop, or else we're gonna go. I didn't get to do. Okay, I'm gonna read this poem. I'm gonna read the poems. Okay? And then we'll start Love Let's Go next time. The bellow of tide, from the blue expanding wide, beyond the roughness of the rocks of Falcon Head, funneled hugely, vainly tried to rend our cavern where it died. In quiet cool of sandy bed, beneath our feet, we shivered as we stood, found no words to fit the mood, which numbed us silent. We quaffed each other's good, but not knowing then to brood, spoke nonsense, laughed, the touch of naked shoulder, as each felt his own the colder, melted other touched things into dream, false every fact I told her, lie that overhanging boulder, all things that were did only seem as we knew love. Jim Elliot. Lord, let this love be pure and high, as clean and vast as thy great sky. O God, engulf us in the tide of love exonerable and hide us ever in thy secret place, where we, as one, may see thy face. Because he first loved us, we love. So let us drink from thine above, and mirror as we there abide the love of Jesus for his bride. Elisabeth Howard. Well, I'm gonna have to change the title of this because I didn't finish and we didn't start this. Let me see how. Okay, so Love Let's Go. How thick did I just read right now? I said 84. Ugh. I don't know. I don't want to split this in two. I would like to get it done. Did I start it on Monday? I guess it's not been 2 weeks. I said 2 weeks, so. Anywho, thank you so much for your time and attention. I really, really appreciate you. I do. And I hope that I try to, again, like I said, there's a mixture of like just my empathy and mixture of things that I just do not like at all, and mixture of like certain moments touching home. Yesterday was an honest expression of things touching home, and I hope I did clarify, things that were not valid at the start of this, because I do want to be truthful and gracious. So, life, man, it's tricky. It is tricky. Yeah. Anywho, do you guys want me to come back to my after thing? I'll do it for just a little bit. I actually haven't had breakfast yet. but I'll come back for a little bit. I want to show you the sunflower, so I'll do that. But I love you, 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 I love you.